Officer Tidmont, what case are you here on?
Case is going to be, I'm sorry.
It looks like Officer Singh is one of the officers that has worked last night.
Judge, yes, I'm speaking to my investigator, and we have a hefty calendar today, so I told him we're going to get to him as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I don't. If you have a witness that has that problem, I don't mind calling the witnesses, especially like I said with police officers, get them out of here so they can go home and go to sleep.
Also, film lodged with the Baker case, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, it looks like we have Mr. Amos here.
Oh, Your Honor,
Yes.
on the Baker case, that case was reset to 5/17.
Yes.
Okay. Officer Tidmont is on that case. Can he be excused?
Yes.
Officer Tidmont, you need to be online on time on May the 17th, 2022 at 8:30.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Okay, let's see. For the record, this is going to be position 1 on today's calendar, State of Georgia versus Lamar Amos. Mr. Amos is charged in warrant number 2022 WA 06550 with committing the offense of public indecency. He's also charged in warrant number 2022 WA 06551 with committing the offense of obstruction of officer. Mr. Amos is here and he's represented by Mr. Little. The state is represented by Ms. Bellow. Let me bring in your witness.
I could
Let's see. Okay. Okay, Ms. Lee.
Yes.
Would you turn your camera on? Ms. Lee asked me, are you there, Ms. Lee?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to keep your camera on. Ms. Bellow, Ms. Lee asked me what to expect because she's never done this before. Told her I'd bring her in so we can have this discussion out in the open. So Ms. Bellow, she represents the state and she's gonna ask you questions about this incident. Just pay attention to the questions that she asks and answer them as in direct a manner as you can. Mr. Little, he represents the defense. And after Ms. Bellow is finished questioning you, Mr. Little may have questions for you also. And you do the same thing. Just listen to the questions and answer them as directly as possible. Okay, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Bellow, you can swear in your witness and begin your examination.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Lee, if you would raise your right hand. Swear affirm the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
Okay, and if you would please state your name.
My name is Patricia Lee.
Okay, and Ms. Lee, were you on a MARTA train on the 14th of April, 2022?
Yes, I was.
And were you headed to the airport?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and while you were on the train to the airport, did you someone approach you on the train?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
I'm sorry, did a gentleman approach you on the train while you were on the way to the airport?
Yes,
Okay, and did he try to engage you in conversation?
yes.
And did you engage him in conversation?
Initially, I did to be polite.
Okay, and then did he continue to try and engage you in conversation?
Yes, he did.
And did you refuse to have a conversation with him?
I simply gave him very short responses until the conversation became extremely inappropriate. And then I stopped responding and basically shook my head no.
Okay, and when you say inappropriate, was the conversation, what made the conversation inappropriate?
The conversation had started to become inappropriate when he asked me if I wanted to go to the beach with him, if I wanted to go to New York City and spend a weekend with him, when he continuously asked for my telephone number, where I was going, asked for my autograph, wanted to know why I would not give him my phone number. And
Okay,
then when I told him why I could not give him my phone number, that my husband would not appreciate it, he asked me if I was going to buy pretty panties and bras. And
Okay.
that was an absolute cross the line.
okay. And so at the point where you stopped responding to him and speaking to him, then what was the next inappropriate thing that occurred?
He continued to attempt conversation and I did not respond. When a woman that was sitting kind of next to him got off the train, he slipped into her seat.
And where was that exactly in conjunction to where you sat?
Directly across from me.
Okay,
And then when she got off the train, he slipped into her seat, put his feet up on the different seats, and I kept my head down. In my peripheral vision, I could see that there was movement.
and when you say movement, meaning what type of movement?
Like a stroking motion. And so I turned on my video camera on my phone so that I could really see exactly what was happening. And he was stroking himself under his pants.
Okay,
And then I realized there was more motion. And then I'm sorry.
did at some point, did he expose himself to
Yes.
you on the
He
train?
had, yes, his penis was fully out in his hand as he continued to stroke it.
Okay,
Wow.
and was he still, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to get to the main details. And was he still sitting that
Directly.
that close to you?
Yes.
Okay, and you captured this incident via photos and video?
That's correct.
And then at some point, did he move or did you move or did the train come to a stop?
The train was coming to the stop at the airport, and as quickly as possible, I stood up and stood directly in front of the doors for them to open.
Okay, and then did you report that to someone at the train station at the airport?
Yes, there happened to be a police officer that was on the platform just past the escalator,
Okay,
and I walked right towards him.
okay. And from the time that time when you stopped, how long would you say that was? About a minute? I mean, was it like the next stop once that occurred?
No, it was a few. It was. I'm sure it was. It was between. It was between the stops, so it was more than a few minutes.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Little?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lee, you're saying this incident between you and Mr. Amos was while the train was moving?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what station you were at when this occurred?
I'm so sorry. I had never been on the train before. I got on at Peachtree.
Okay.
I was heading to the airport. So it would have been, this began at least like after the last stop prior to the airport is when the worst of it began.
Okay.
The
And then-
conversation engaged very soon after the train left the Peachtree station. So it happened, it was going on nearly the entire time I was on that train.
But as far as the exposure, that happened after the last stop before getting to the airport.
I believe so. My understanding also is that there's video on the train as well to
Okay.
validate or verify that.
Okay. And then when you got to the MARTA station, you got up and left the train.
Yes, I did at the airport.
Where did
That was the
you,
last stop.
where did you find the police officer that you reported it to?
He was standing on the platform on the other side of the escalator.
Did you give a description to the officer?
I showed him the photograph. I gave him a description as best as I could. I was pretty shaken up. So I showed him the photograph and I showed him the videos.
Okay. Did you make any kind of identification after the officers arrested the suspect in this case?
I didn't. No, I did not. I know that that he was walking right towards us, and I saw, you know, like basically the clothing that he was wearing at the time, and I asked to please be removed as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Those are the questions I have.
Okay. Any follow-up?
Judge, I just need to be clear. And Ms. Lee, I understand that this is, you're a little shaken up, but two things that I need to ask. You said the worst of the incident, and we just need to be clear, which would be the full exposure of his penis, happened at the stop right before the airport stop. Is that correct?
It was between the point that he started rubbing himself and then exposing himself would have happened after the train left the last stop prior to the airport.
Okay, so the stop, okay, airport was when you observed the stroking.
Yes.
Okay, and because you mentioned two stroking, so I need us to be clear. So the first stroking, he was doing it where he was not fully exposed, correct?
That's correct. That's
And
correct.
then there was the full exposure.
That's correct.
Okay, and the full exposure, did that occur while you were pulling into the station for the airport?
It happened before. It was happening en route
Okay.
prior to the train coming to a complete stop.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Was it continuous? So as you pulled to the stop for the airport, was he still exposed?
Yes.
Okay, and then the other question, that I have for you today is on your Zoom, and you took a picture and a video, and that's what you showed to the officers, and that's how they were able to find the defendant, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Further questions?
Okay. Any follow-up, Mr. Little?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. May Ms. Lee be excused?
Yes, she can.
Okay, Ms. Lee, you can choose to stay or you can leave. It's your choice. Which do you want to do?
I will stay.
Okay. Are you presenting any evidence, Mr. Little?
No, Your Honor.
Any argument?
Judge, the state, of course, is going to dismiss the obstruction warrant as we had no testimony here. But we would state that Ms. Lee testified that there was a full exposure of the lewd, lascivious nature, that it was done, it was continuous, and it was done on the MARTA train as they were pulling into the airport in Clayton County. So we asked the case to be bound over.
Mr. Little?
Your Honor, I was going to argue against the obstruction, but I guess the state will be dismissing that. I have no objection to that, Your Honor. As for the indecent exposure, my biggest worry about that is the venue, Your Honor. If this happens on the train while it's en route between Fulton County and Clayton County, somewhere that line would have been crossed. And so my worry is that the state hasn't proven a venue for that charge, Your Honor. Then they wouldn't have shown probable cause for this to be in the right court.
Well, I think that's why Ms. Bella was going in painful detail with Ms. Lee about the alleged incident. And so I believe that she's presented sufficient evidence to satisfy venue for this case. As far as I understand. Now, at trial, that may be something different if you bring people in with maps and everything else to show where it is. But I'm going to bind this over to state court of Clayton County, the public indecency, indecent exposure, and the obstructing an officer will be dismissed at the request of the state. Mr. Amos can be returned back to his housing location. And I believe Officer Singh wanted to be next. And that's Dana Dotson.
Aaron, the state was going to request Jones and Taylor. That's actually Officer Santos.
Okay, Jones and Taylor.
I think that's Christian Jones and Darnell Taylor.
Okay, let's bring up Kristen Jones.
Am I excused now?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day. Let's see. We're moving this list down, but it's still a whole lot of people. Boy. Jones and Taylor. Let's bring up Kristen Jones at the jail, please.
And Judge, I have an announcement. I'm not sure who who represents Reginald Arnold.
Okay,
Yes, Your Honor, that'd be,
Mr. Lane.
yes.
Okay, so the state's going to be dismissing the warrants in the Reginald Arnold case.
Okay.
All right, Your Honor, would you like me to draw up the order?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And if the jail can still hear me, Reginald Arnold can be sent back. Are you
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir, I am. Reginald Arnold.
Okay, Mr. Jones, sir, this is your preliminary hearing. I just want to remind you that anything you say is not privileged or private. So please don't say anything that you wouldn't want the whole world to know. We're going to have Officer Santos in this case. For the record, this is position 31, State of Georgia versus Kristen Jones. Mr. Jones was charged in warrant number 2022 WA05811 with committing the offense of battery. Mr. Jones is present. He's being represented by Mr. Little. State is being represented by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks, you can swear in your witness and present your case.
Thank you. Mr. Santos, raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony about giving the matter now pending before the court be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please tell us what's your name.
My name is Tyler Santos, work for Clayton Police Department,
Okay, and what capacity do you serve the police department?
as a police officer.
Are you part of the uniform patrol?
Yes, sir.
Is it part of your duties and responsibilities to respond to call outs as dispatched by 911?
Yes, sir.
Did you respond to the area of 330 Arrowhead Boulevard, apartment 54 on March 31st, 2022?
Yes, sir.
Was it regarding a disturbance at the location?
Yes, sir.
During the course of the investigation, did you encounter one Christian Jones?
Yes, sir, I did.
How did you come to encounter Mr. Jones?
I first responded there and made contact with Christopher, his brother, the victim. And he was stating that he was beaten by his brother during an altercation inside the residence. The victim Christian had an open wound on his face and on his hand. And he stated that his brother walked away from the residence. He had other officers search the area and find Mr. Christian, the defendant, and bring him back to the residence where he was questioned about the altercation that occurred. Christopher stated that the night prior to the incident, he was at his wife's house off of Terra Road, and he was having drinks with his wife and the defendant. The defendant went to bed early. Him and his wife were still up having drinks. The defendant woke up and left the residence back to the incident location at Arrowhead Boulevard. Mr. Christopher said that he noticed that his house key was missing, and he went back to the residence over at Arrowhead and confronted Christian about his house key, which Christian denied that he had. Christopher had his case manager meet them at the location with a spare key so they could enter the residence. Christopher stated that he walked inside, told Christian that he was no longer welcomed inside the residence and he had to leave. And when he turned away to walk away from Christian, he was hit in the back of the head, knocked down on the ground, kicked, stepped on, strangled, and Christian eventually left the residence.
You say he was hit in the back of the head. Was he hit with an object or with a fist?
Christopher could not state what he was hit with, just that he was hit in the back of the head.
You also advised that he was strangled. Did you explore that further?
I did investigate it further. There was no marks or anything around Christopher's neck, and Christopher tended to change his story when confronted with further questioning. So I dispelled that allegation on scene.
Now, you spoke to Christian, is that right?
Correct.
And Christian did advise you that he did place his arms around his brother's neck?
Yeah, he's just, Christian advised that he did hit Christopher twice in the face, knocked him down, sat on the ground behind him, and placed his arms around his neck to restrain him, and then immediately released his arms. An observation that Christopher was not fighting back due to him being underneath the influence of alcohol.
Okay. Now, you say when you first encountered Christopher, you did observe he had a gash or something on his head from the altercation?
Yeah, it was a superficial injury, but it was a blood risen to the surface of his head.
Okay. After conclusion of the investigation, what'd you do?
Conclusion of the investigation sought that Mr. Christian was a predominant aggressor due to the injuries on Christian was a predominant aggressor due to the injuries on Christopher, and was taken into custody for battery.
Okay. And and this Arrowhead location, that's here in Clayton County, is that?
Yes, sir.
The individual that you identified as Christian Jones on scene, do you see that individual on screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that, would you identify the individual by article of clothing?
the white mask and the orange jumpsuit.
Okay, no additional questions at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Little?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Santos, when you made contact with Christopher, he seemed like he was under the influence of alcohol, maybe?
Not as quite, Christopher, I'm sorry. Yes, Christopher. Yes, he was.
Christopher, and that is the complaining witness in this case, right? I mean, I think in your police report, you said that he seemed like he was extremely under the influence of alcohol.
Yes, sir.
You wrote that he had a strong odor on his breath, was slurring words, and had confused speech.
Correct.
And also that he was continually changing his story every time he was confronted with another question.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
So, I mean, I guess that's why you didn't think there was probable cause for the story about the choking.
Correct.
When you spoke with Mr. Christian, was he under the influence of alcohol?
Not that I can remember. If I didn't document it, then no, sir.
Okay. And when you spoke with Mr. Christian, he told you that Christopher hit him first.
No, he said that Christopher swung at him first.
Swung at him. So attempted to attack him.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then after that, he defended himself against that attempted attack.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You said you were able to see superficial injuries on Christopher.
Correct, to the face and the hand.
Which I guess could be consistent with Christian saying he hit him after he was swung at.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You also spoke to another witness who was there. Was that Eileen?
She was not on scene. I just spoke to her over the phone. That's the
Okay. So she told you that she didn't see any physical altercation between the two brothers.
Correct. That she arrived on scene, handed Christopher the spare key, and then left the scene.
So does that mean the only witnesses to the altercation would have been Christian and Christopher?
Correct.
Okay. Did Christian have any injuries?
No, sir.
Okay. And I guess that's what informed your charging decision then, caused you to charge Christopher.
As a predominant aggressor.
Or I guess to charge Christian as being the aggressor.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. That's the questions I have this time.
Any follow-up, Mr. Brooks?
Very, very briefly. One, Officer Santos, you advised in your prior testimony that you did interview Mr. Jones, correct?
Yes.
And during the course of the interview, he did admit to you striking his brother, Christopher Jones. Is that right?
Correct.
He also admitted to you that he did put his arms around his brother's neck. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And you did observe a open superficial wound on Mr. Christopher Jones. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. No additional questions.
Mr. Little, any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I know we have Mr. Officer Santos on Mr. Taylor. So just stand by, sir. Is there any argument on either side?
None from saying. I'll say something on the evidence.
Your Honor, as to the argument in this case, the only witnesses that spoke to Officer Santos that said there was an altercation between these two are Christian and Christopher Jones, both brothers. Christian, my client, told Officer Santos that he responded by striking Christopher after he was attacked, after a blow was thrown at him. That blow didn't necessarily connect with Christian, but I mean, he was currently under attack and exercising his right to self-defense while being attacked, is the testimony he gave to Officer Santos. Santos tells us that Christopher seemed extremely under the influence of alcohol when he was being spoken to, had confused speech, and kept changing his story every time he was confronted with questions. That's the very definition of an unreliable witness, Your Honor. And that is the only witness that Officer Santos has that can tell him that this fight happened in such a way that would cause Mr. Christian to get criminally charged. So I would argue that the state has failed to meet their burden of probable cause in this case because their sole witness that they're relying on is an unreliable witness, Your Honor.
Well, I'm going to find that the evidence is sufficient based upon the testimony of the superficial injury to the back of the head. So this case will get bound over to the state court of Clayton County. Mr. Jones can be returned back to his housing location. And we're going to pull up Mr. Taylor. Ms. Crowder, I see you have a child. Are you a witness here today? You're muted, ma'am.
Yes, Judge, she is a victim in one of the cases.
Okay. I'm going to place you, ma'am, in a breakout room. Let's see.
Okay.
We have available. Looks like room 1 is available.
She's on the barge case, Judge.
Barge, okay. And let's see this. Okay, ma'am, you should be able to click on the link and we'll bring you up when it's time for you to testify, okay? We need Mr. Darnell Taylor. Whew. Mr. Taylor, sir, this is your preliminary hearing. Where's that noise coming from? Mr. Hernandez. Mr. Taylor, this is your preliminary hearing. Just want to remind you that nothing you say, nothing said here is privileged or private. So please don't say anything that you wouldn't want the whole world to know. Okay, sir?
Yes, sir.
For the record, this is going to be position 68, State of Georgia versus Darnell Taylor. Mr. Taylor is charged in warrant number 2022 WA 06192 with committing the offense of obstructing an officer. Mr. Taylor is here present in court. He's represented by Mr. Little. The state is being represented by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks, will you swear your witness in? Present your case.
Yes, sir. Officer Santos, raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give in a matter not pending before the court be the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth of you guys?
I do.
Once more, state your name for the record.
Hold on, where'd Mr. Taylor go? I want to make sure he's still present.
Okay, give us 1 second.
Okay.
Here. Come on, Mr. Keller. There we go.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
Okay. Once more, tell us what's your name, sir?
Officer Taylor.
Say that once more.
Officer Tyler Santos, the Clayton County Police Department.
And Officer Santos, on April the 8th of 2022, you were employed in the same capacity?
Yes, sir.
On that day, did you provide backup to a scene in which there was a disturbance to an officer, Tyler Reed?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall how you became involved in that case?
Well, I was first initially dispatched to the racetrack at 7721 Terra Boulevard in reference to a disturbance where the victim advised a black male with a tan hat and a Bob Marley sweatshirt threw a rock at his vehicle and caused damage to the rear fender.
Okay. And were you the lead investigator on that case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During the course of the investigation, once you concluded your investigation, did you make an arrest decision?
Yes, I after reviewing the footage from the restaurant that the incident occurred in front of, As I walked out the front door, Officer Reed and another officer, Rupert, were standing by with the defendant by the gas station. And when I came out of the restaurant, I signaled to Officer Reed and Rupert to take the defendant into custody. And that's when they attempted to place handcuffs on the defendant.
And as they were attempting to place handcuffs on Mr. Taylor, did you observe Mr. Taylor resist arrest?
Like I said, I was across the street. So as I was approaching towards Officer Reed, there was vehicles passing by in front of me. I did see Officer Reed and Rupert have the defendant stand up. And on the course of me approaching them, I saw a slight struggle, but couldn't see exactly what was going on. By the time I got across the street, the defendant was laying down on his stomach on the ground.
And during after that point, did you have an opportunity to speak to Officer Reed?
I did.
Did you learn from Officer Reed that he resisted arrest?
Yes, sir, I did.
And the individual who was placed under arrest, that individual, you identified the individual as Darnell Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This incident, this racetrack, it is here in Clayton County?
Yes, sir.
All right, no additional questions.
Mr. Little?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Santos, when you spoke to Officer Reed, did he tell you what the nature of the resistance was?
Officer Reed did tell me that in an attempt to place the defendant's hands behind his back in order to handcuff him, he attempted to pull away and walk away from officers.
And did Reed have to put him on the ground?
I can't speak on Officer Reed's behalf, but I would only assume so if he was laying on his stomach on the ground.
Okay. By the time you got over there, was there any indication that Mr. Taylor was still resisting?
Like I said, when I got over there, he was in handcuffs. He didn't want to cooperate with officers to walk him back to the patrol vehicle where he had to be carried back.
Okay. Those are the questions I have at this time.
Any follow-up?
I'm from Sayon.
May Officer Santos be excused?
He may, Your Honor.
Thank you, Officer Santos. You may be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good day.
You too. Is there any evidence the defense intends to put on?
No, Your Honor.
Any argument?
State submits, Your Honor.
Defense will also submit on the evidence, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm going to find, based upon testimony, that the evidence is sufficient to bind this case over to state court of Clayton County for trial. Okay. Are we going?
Just for the record on Mr. Taylor, he was previously appointed to the Public Defender's Office. I did submit a appointment order for him this morning.
Okay. I see a bunch of emails. I will get to in due time. Can we bring up Mr. Dotson? And after Mr. Dotson, we'll do Mr. Barge. Officer Singh. What happened? Did we lose Officer Singh?
So you said Dotson?
Yes, sir. Dana
Female.
Dotson.
Okay, sir. It's a female.
Oh, it is? Huh.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. It says Dana Maurice Dotson.
Pretty sure it's a male. I've met with him before, Your Honor.
Okay. The middle name says Maurice.
Yeah, Dana is a male.
Okay. Dana's got to be a male.
Okay, sir.
Oh. Ugh.
Your middle name is Maurice? Martha?
Yes, Martha
And your last name is Dotson?
Dillon.
Oh, we're looking for Dotson.
There is a Dylan on the calendar, but that's a different case.
Yeah, that's the case before it. There's Martha Dillon, but we're trying to get Dana Dotson.
Dana Dotson. That's you? Dana Dotson. What's this one name? Dana. Dana.
Hmm.
Dana Dotson. No. Dana, is that you? Dana? Dana Dotson, no, that's not you. Sir, Dana?
Dana Maurice Dotson, Dodson.
Judge, take us off YouTube till they find them.